It's 6 p.m. on a Tuesday here in Korea. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let us begin with the headlines. President Park urged stronger preparation against future provocation from North Korea at a cabinet meeting today. She also called for resettlement plans for defectors arriving in the south. In response to a growing number of incidents involving illegal Chinese fishing vessels, the Korean government lays out new measures designed to empower the Coast Guard in the event of a conflict. Samsung decides to temporarily suspend sales and replacements of its flagship Galaxy Note 7 after more reports of burning batteries rolling in. Seoul and Washington are on the lookout for another possible provocation by North Korea. Today, President Park once again called for stronger sanctions on the reclusive regime while also emphasizing the importance of embracing defectors. Song Ji-sun starts us off with her remarks at the cabinet meeting.
At a cabinet meeting Tuesday, President Park noted the possibility of further North Korean provocations, saying that Pyongyang will never give up its nuclear and missile programs, despite the continued efforts to the contrary from the international community. She stressed that protecting South Korea and its people by denuclearizing North Korea is a critical national task.
이제는 북한 정권이 도발을 포기할 수밖에 없도록 변화를 강제하기 위한 제재와 압박에 전방위적인 노력을 기울여야 하고 우리 내부적으로도 더욱 단합해서 강력한 안보 태세를 갖춰야 합니다.
President Park also called for swift adoption of stronger international sanctions to close loopholes in previous UN resolutions and called for strong independent sanctions to pressure the North.
핵 개발을 멈추지 않으면 보다 강력한 제재가 가해지는 것은 물론 국제사회 대 북한의 구도가 더욱 확고해져서 최소한의 외교적 관계도 어려워질 것이라는 점을 분명히 인식시켜야 합니다.
President Park also noted that influx of defectors could be a precursor to unification and that the successful settlement of the defectors could give hope to people in the north suffering from tyranny.
관계부처들은 긴밀하게 협업해서 탈북민 정착을 위한 제도를 재점검하고 자유와 인권을 찾아 올 북한 주민들을 충분히 수용할 수 있는 체계와 역량을 조속히 갖춰 나가기를 바랍니다.
Saying that time is running out, President Park also called on lawmakers to prioritize the nation's security and join forces to change North Korea for the country's future. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
South Korea's defense and foreign ministers will be in Washington to discuss Pyongyang's growing nuclear and missile threats with their U.S. counterparts next week. Kim Hyun-bin has more on the fourth 2+2 meeting, the event that's been held since 2010 biennially.
South Korea's Defense Minister Han Min-gu and Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se are scheduled to meet with their U.S. counterparts Ashton Carter and John Kerry next Wednesday, October 19th. To discuss a range of issues, including the threats from North Korea and ways to enhance an alliance between the two countries.
All aspects of North Korea's fifth nuclear test and missile threats will be evaluated, along with ways to impose stronger sanctions on North Korea and enhancing the U.S.'s extended deterrence for South Korea.
On the following day, the 48th Security Consultative Meeting will be held with South Korean Defense Minister Han and U.S. Secretary of Defense Carter at the Pentagon. According to South Korea's Defense Ministry on Tuesday, the two ministers will evaluate the threats from the north, including ways to better counter the regime's nuclear and missile threats. The deployment to South Korea of the U.S. Advanced Missile Defense System, THAAD, is also up for discussion. The THAAD battery is scheduled to be deployed on the peninsula by the end of 2017. Other issues likely to be on the agenda include the U.S. forces' planned relocation to Pyeongtaek in Gyeonggi-do Province and enhancing cyber cooperation, along with other defense-related issues. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
South Korea's foreign ministry summoned China's ambassador to Seoul this morning, calling for swift and sincere measures by the Chinese government over illegal fishing activities. Kwon So-ah fills us in on the efforts to prevent further such incidents in Korean waters.
South Korea's foreign ministry summoned China's ambassador to Seoul Tuesday to protest last week's sinking of a Korean Coast Guard vessel by a Chinese vessel fishing illegally in the West Sea. Deputy Foreign Minister Kim Hyung-jin called Ambassador Chu Kuo-hong to his office and demanded measures to prevent such incidents from recurring. The ministry had already lodged a complaint Sunday and summoned China's Consul General in Seoul. The government's action to raise the level of protest demonstrates the seriousness of the threat.
Considering the gravity and seriousness of the incident, we demand the Chinese government swiftly carry out measures such as an investigation, arrest and punishment of the attackers and vessel.
Seoul's deputy foreign minister was said to have emphasized that the incident represents a straight act of defiance against the South Korean government's authority, as well as a direct and systematic provocation against South Korea's law enforcement authority. Beijing's ambassador said the Chinese government is dealing with the issue in a sincere and responsible manner and that it will work with South Korea to find a solution. But while the Chinese officials in Seoul were said to have expressed their grievances on the issue, the Chinese Foreign Ministry's stance was somewhat different. The ministry spokesperson Geng Shuang said Monday during a regular press briefing that China hopes South Korea will handle the issue in a reasonable and cool-headed manner with consideration for the dual interests of bilateral ties and regional stability. With these conflicting positions, it remains to be seen how active the Chinese government will be in dealing with the problem and whether the issue could put a dent in Seoul-Beijing ties. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Staying on that topic, the South Korean government just laid out new measures in response to growing hostilities by these illegal Chinese fishing boats. Our Hwang Ho-jun lists out the necessary changes to ensure the safety of the Korean Coast Guard.
The measures are the strongest ever to be implemented. The Korean government on Tuesday laid out a new set of measures that will empower the Coast Guard in crackdowns on illegal Chinese fishing in Korean waters. The biggest change is that Coast Guard officers will now be allowed to use weapons during the conflicts. In addition, the Coast Guard will add more patrol ships to its existing fleet. By law, Coast Guard officers can use weapons, and they carry rifles and handguns on board the vessels with them while they're on duty. But this is the first time they will be able to use them in conflicts with the vessels. Last week, in a confrontation between a Chinese fishing vessel and a Korean Coast Guard vessel that led to the Korean vessel to sink, the Korean officers did use their weapons, but they only fired off shots in the air to intimidate the trespassers. In the past, if Korean Coast Guard vessels were outnumbered by trespassing Chinese ships, all the Coast Guard could do was try and force them to leave. And if a Korean vessel came under attack, as it did last week, the Coast Guard had little recourse. But now, the Korean Coast Guard will not only be able to react more aggressively by using weapons, it will also be permitted to launch a cannon fire and ram into the offending vessel. If the ship starts to flee, the Coast Guard can chase it into open water to capture it. And if the trespassing vessel tries to ram into a Korean Coast Guard vessel, all of the fishermen on board will be put under investigation and their assets will be confiscated. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories now, the case of an elderly farmer who died last month after being hit by a police water cannon at a protest last year was at the center of the parliamentary audit today. Rival parties clashed over that issue and some controversial remarks by the Seoul mayor. Ji Myung-gil has the latest from the National Assembly.
The ruling Saenuri Party criticized the opposition parties over their move to designate an independent counsel to investigate the death of Baek Nam-gi, an elderly farmer who was struck by a police water cannon during a protest last year. He died in late September after being in coma for 10 months.
Mr. Baek was participating in a protest that was labeled as illegal by the government. These were illegal protesters. There's no need for such an investigation.
The ruling party said the opposition bloc is politicizing the matter and an autopsy should be conducted to find the exact cause of death. Baek's family says an autopsy is not necessary because it's clear the water cannon blast led to his death. The opposition party said the only way to clear up the suspicion is through an investigation by an independent counsel, because the ongoing probe by the prosecution is not proceeding in a timely and legitimate manner.
Public safety starts with an investigation of who's responsible, not obfuscation.
The controversy over Peg's case was reignited after Seoul National University Hospital, where Peg was being treated, categorized his death as cardiopulmonary arrest caused by illness. Peg's advocates say it was caused by an external factor, namely the water cannon blast. The rival parties also clashed over Seoul Mayor Park Won-soon's recent remark that the city of Seoul should not allow police to use fire hydrants for the purpose of firing water cannons on protesters. The ruling party called Mayor Park irresponsible, saying he has a duty to protect the public order in the event of illegal or violent protests. The opposition party said Mayor Park is the one responsible for the city's fire brigades, and as such has a right to make such remarks. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Samsung's global recall and replacement of Galaxy Note 7 served no purpose, as there are more reports coming in of renewed versions catching fire. The global leader in smartphone decides to stop sales and exchanges of its latest devices for now. Kim Min-ji has this report.
It's another blow to Samsung Electronics. The world's #1 smartphone maker says it'll temporarily suspend sales and replacements of the Galaxy Note 7. In an official statement posted on its website, Samsung said as consumer safety is its top priority, all global partners will be asked to halt sales and exchanges while an investigation takes place into whether or not the replacement phones are safe. The warning comes just over a month after Samsung announced a global recall of 2.5 million Note 7s, following several reports of the device catching fire while charging, and offered replacements or a full refund. Despite Samsung's swift handling of the situation, at least 8 new cases of fire involving the replacement Note 7 have been reported, 5 in the US, 1 each in Korea, China, and Taiwan. While Samsung said it has been looking into the recently reported cases with the relevant regulatory bodies in those markets, this has prompted the company to announce that it would adjust its production output on Monday. Samsung has advised consumers with the original or replacement to power down and stop using the device, adding that it will soon roll out follow-up measures for those who own a Note 7, which will likely include refunds or exchanges for a different model altogether. All this happened within 2 months since the Galaxy Note 7 was released back on August 19th. The global recall itself is expected to cost Samsung up to $2 billion, but damages could be even greater given the impact it may have on the company's brand image overall.
Now it's the second time, so this time it might affect the brand loyalty. And already we think this affected the other Samsung products as well. Even small problem in other Samsung Galaxy phones, people kind of link that to the Note 7. So this time I think it will affect the consumer's perception of the Samsung brand overall as well. In our monthly sales checks, we already are seeing other Samsung products being impacted by the Note.
Analysts say the sales suspension could lead to a premature termination of the flagship phablet and take a toll on the company's fourth quarter earnings. Samsung shares also tumbled on the local market, closing down over 8% on Tuesday. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Turning our focus over to the U.S., Donald Trump's campaign is coming apart, but can the man pundits have compared to Teflon rebound once more? Yoon Shin gauged the possibilities.
It looks like Donald Trump's poll numbers are sliding after the leak of a decade-old video of him making controversial comments about women. The latest NBC Wall Street Journal poll, taken after the release of the video, has Trump trailing Hillary Clinton by 14 points in a heads-up race. But despite the numeric differences, political pundits say it's still too early to dismiss the possibility of the celebrity businessman making it all the way to the White House.
This can still be a very competitive race because the volatility is high in these support ratings. What this means is that we need to wait and see. 1 month is still a lot of time, and there's a lot that could happen within that month, not only to Donald Trump, but also to Hillary Clinton.
Even so, Trump has taken a beating in recent days. Republican House Speaker Paul Ryan has also distanced himself from the candidate after emergence of a 2005 video showing Trump bragging about groping and making sexual advances on women. Ryan said he would no longer campaign with nor defend Donald Trump. Instead, he said he would spend the next 29 days trying to protect his party's congressional majority to make sure Clinton does not get a blank check with a Democratic-controlled Congress. Trump was quick to fire back at Ryan, tweeting that the House Speaker should spend more time balancing the budget, creating jobs, and tackling illegal immigration instead of wasting time fighting him. That all came after a bruising debate that pundits have deemed the nastiest in U.S. presidential history. But even with all of the ugliness that emerged, the punditocracy seems to think Trump was at least able to staunch the bleeding enough to keep members of his party from fleeing and keep his campaign alive. And according to our expert, he may still have a shot to win over some undecided voters at the third and last debate on October 19th. 이윤신, 아리랑 뉴스.
That's our newscast for this hour. For viewers tuning in from Korea, we have more domestic news updates coming right up. Thank you for watching.
Thanks for staying with us. I'm Devin Whiting with your in-depth domestic news. The strike by unionized cargo truck drivers that started at midnight on Monday appears to be having a limited effect on the nation's logistics. Korea's transport ministry said today that no major disruptions have been reported due to lower than expected participation. As of 10 p.m. last night, local authorities confirmed that just 16 out of nearly 8,400 truck drivers had actively refused to follow the orders of freight companies, though another 1,400 drivers didn't show up for work. Cargo processing at the nation's major ports was at 83.8% of the usual amount. The government has secured substitute vehicles to keep things moving, including 100 military container trucks and 200 unregistered private cargo trucks. It's also called the walkout illegal and warned that strikers could lose benefits such as fuel subsidies. Korea's tax payment system is about to get even easier. In a cabinet meeting today, the government decided to allow local taxes to be paid automatically by credit card. This applies to taxes on automobiles and property, as well as residence tax, which are all determined and collected by Korea's cities and provinces. Until now, it was possible to set up automatic payments directly from a taxpayer's bank account, but the new rules will allow credit card companies to pay on their customers' behalf. At the same time, the government plans to crack down on those over-reporting the amount they're due in the case of a tax refund by charging a penalty of 10% of the inflated amount. A breakthrough in fish breeding by Korean researchers could lead to a major shakeup in the fish farming industry. Scientists have successfully bred a second generation of pollock from fish that were themselves bred artificially. It could not only make fish cheaper, but help restore species at risk of dying out. Oh Jung-hee reports.
Korea has become the first country in the world to successfully breed a second generation of pollock from fish that were bred through artificial fertilization. Korea's Fisheries Ministry announced on Tuesday that some 40,000 pollock were bred artificially from 200 fish that had themselves been bred artificially. The second-generation fish have grown to around 0.7 centimeters, which is the size at which pollock are essentially guaranteed to survive.
Almost 40,000 pollock were hatched from 140,000 artificially fertilized eggs. They've successfully grown to the 0.7 centimeter mark.
The Korean government started its research in 2014 to restore pollock numbers on the country's eastern coast, where they've been dwindling. But the project failed as the second, also artificially bred generation died. This time, however, the government has raised them successfully as researchers found the right water temperature and food. The government plans to give out this technology to fish farmers and enable mass farming by 2018. It'll also apply it to other types of fish on the verge of extinction.
We'll continue our research to develop the same type of technology for other expensive types of fish, like saw-edge perch and yellowtail amberjack.
The new development is likely to lift the hopes of consumers, pollock being a local favorite, as the imported fish is now 5 times as expensive as pollock found locally. 오정희, Arirang News.
And those are some of the stories we're following right now. Thanks for watching. We'll be back at 8 p.m. Korea time. Bye for now.